Hello, I'm V and welcome back to The Wanderlust Reader, and today I'm going to be talking about dystopian fiction. Dystopian fiction is one of my favourite genres, possibly is my favourite genre. Like if I read a dystopian, there's a higher chance that I'm going to rate it a 5-star than if it's any other genre, if that makes sense. Dystopia definitely has more 5 stars than any other genre that I read. So I'm going to be recommending 5 books that I think are the best dystopian that I've read so far. And I've recently been looking for more dystopian fiction to read. If you know of any that isn't on this list, drop them in the comments. Let me know. Recommend me some dystopian fiction. Adult or YA, I'm open. So the first book/series that I'm going to recommend is a classic. It's on pretty much every list like this, and that is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This is a YA dystopian series about a group of teenagers who are forced to fight for the death for the entertainment of those in the capital. There are 3 books in the series. It's a trilogy. As we all know, Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay. So we follow Katniss as the main protagonist through all 3 books in her rebellion against the capital, who the capital are the rich, the wealthy, and those in the districts are the poor, the workers. It's classic division. I've read this series twice now. I first read it when I very first got a Kindle many years ago. And then I bought the physical copy secondhand, and I've listened to the audiobooks as well. This, for me, is the classic dystopia. It's got a protagonist that you root for. I love the theme, I love the message in it, I love the characterisation. It deals with trauma really well. It's the first time I've read a book that dealt with trauma and the after effects of being forced to fight for your life in an arena of other teenagers. You know, that's going to give you some PTSD. And this book deals with that really well. If you haven't read it and you like dystopia, I mean. The second one is another classic that I think a lot of people have either heard of and a lot of people have read for school, if for no other reason, and that is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood, everything that I've read of hers so far, which granted I haven't read a lot considering how many books she's written, is dystopia. But this is the classic. This is the first Atwood book that I read. The first book that I read academically for my Access course. This is the book that I learned to analyse fiction with. It is set in a world called Gilead, where most women are no longer fertile, and those that are little more than possessions of wealthy couples who wish to have a child. So it's about women's rights and reproductive rights in particular. I recently read its belated sequel, The Testaments, and honestly, this works, I think, better as a standalone. I didn't see the need for The Testaments. I think this stands on its own as a work that reflects contemporary concerns when it was written in the mid-80s. It's first-person narration. It's an unreliable narrator. There's a lot of mystery in it. There's not a lot of clear, hard, cold facts, but it's the atmosphere in this that I really enjoyed. The fact that you don't fully know the whys, wherefores, who the narrator really is. She's never named. She's only ever named as Offred, which is her name as a handmaid belonging to the dude named Fred. It is an important work, and I think if you haven't read it, I haven't seen the TV series, so I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know how good it is. I just haven't watched it. But I think if you haven't read this, and again, a bit like The Hunger Games, you are interested in dystopia, this is one of the classics of dystopia. And it's a classic for a reason. This is one that does live up to its hype for me anyway. The third one is another classic, although not quite, I don't think, as well known as The Handmaid's Tale, and that is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is the first Ishiguro that I read. I read it for a book club initially, and then I read it again for one of my modules. I can't remember which one it was now. A university module. So in Never Let Me Go, we follow the main character as she reflects on her years at a mysterious boarding school. And as she does the job she was trained to do in the present sort of day, we get her memories. It is a mystery about who this character is, what exactly she's doing as a job. Through the little bits that are revealed throughout the story, you come to understand what is happening, and it's pretty chilling. It's pretty unsettling. I will just say that. Again, I'm pretty sure there is a film. I haven't seen the film. there's a theme emerging of me not watching films and TV series based on books. Ishiguro writes in such a melancholy, careful way. I struggle to always put this style of writing into words, but it is slow, it is steady, it is introspective. Maybe that's kind of the best word for it. It is introspective, and I really love it. Ishiguro is at this point one of my favourite authors because I just love the way he writes, the way he tells a story, the way he does drip feed those little bits of information throughout the narrative until you come to realise just what the answers to the questions are. And when you go back and you reread it, the second time I read this, I was a bit like, why didn't I see this the first time? Why did it take until 2/3 into the novel for me to understand what was going on? Because the clues were all there at the beginning, but you just don't see them. It just doesn't register because it's so normalised. It's what is happening is just normal to the character, and so it's never doesn't get drawn attention to until you realise. And it's chilling. The fourth one is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, and this I read as an ebook. I don't have a physical copy. It is more of a novella length, this one, than a full-on novel. Again, I read it for a book club. It's set in a strange world where books are banned. The central character rebels and the book follows what happens to him. I read this quite a few years ago. I don't fully remember what happened in it. I need to reread it, basically. So this is me reminding myself to reread Fahrenheit 451. I need to get a paperback copy of it. That's the thing that I need, is a paperback copy of it. But it is a classic, and this is where the sort of book burning thing in dystopia comes from, I think. It's again an oppressive world where it sort of reminds me a little bit, thinking about it now, of 1984, in the sense that the information that characters are allowed to have is highly controlled. And the last one is one of my favourite books of all time, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is set on Mars, or it starts out on Mars. It follows a community of miners. The main character is called Darrow, and he discovers that everything his community believes in is a lie. He is a red, and the golds have been oppressing people for centuries. It's about rebellion and the slippery slope that power often leads to. So the reds are the lowest caste and the golds are the highest caste. So it's kind of a caste system based on colour. I picked this up randomly out of the library one day about 6 or 7 years ago, and I just fell in love with it. I hadn't read as much dystopia back then. I'd read The Hunger Games, but I hadn't read The Handmaid's Tale, I hadn't read Never Let Me Go, I haven't read Fahrenheit 451. This was one of the more earlier dystopias that I read, and I connected the dots, I think, when I read this between The Hunger Games and this, and thought, I really like this genre. I really love the rebellion, the anger, the fighting back against oppression, the fighting for a more ideal world. I love that trope, the underdog, the person who stands up and says no more, we're not taking any more of this bullshit. That's what I like, and that's what this book does. There's the first trilogy, which is Red Rising, Golden Sun and Morning Star, and then there's a second trilogy, which we're waiting for the final book in, which is Iron Gold, Dark Age, and then the final book, hopefully, Pierce Brown is writing, and we'll get soon. Because it's set in space, it's sort of space opera style, I think. It's a sci-fi dystopian, which I don't think I've read any other sci-fi dystopians. But yeah, the writing in this is dramatic. It's sort of based on sort of a Roman-ish society type thing, structure of society. And it's a very dramatic book, and the writing is dramatic as well, which I absolutely loved. I love the descriptions, I love the characters. One of my favourite books, one of my favourite series ever. So that is my dystopia, my 5 dystopian recommendations. As I say, I do need to read more dystopian. I want to read more dystopian. I just don't often come across it. I'm currently reading a dystopian. The ones we're meant to find by an author I can't remember the name of. Not sure I'm liking it that much. We'll see. We'll see. That will be in my August wrap-up eventually, when I get to it. When we get there, which it's going fast. Let me know what your dystopian recommendations are in the comments, and I will see you next time with another video.